Hello, welcome. Thank you for being with me. I'm Lucas Kitchen. Hey, before we get to anything else, I want to remind you to subscribe and like and follow and whatever you want on whatever platform you're on. I hope that you'll take advantage of those options to find out about what we're doing in the future. So did you know that thousands of Jews are flocking to Israel? Thousands since the beginning of the Eastern European conflict between Russia and Ukraine. That's right, tens of thousands, an uptick in a big way in their immigration. So what's going on? Well, first of all, I think the thing that we need to understand is that Russia intends to close the Jewish Agency, the Russian branch of the Jewish Agency there in Russia. Now, what is the Jewish Agency? Well, it's a nonprofit organization that helps Jews who want to immigrate to Israel, helps them get to Israel. And so that is a very important little point, that as the Kremlin moves towards closing the Jewish Agency, it is a little frightening to Jews in Eastern Europe. So they were going to decide, I believe, mid-August, but the court case has been pushed back until September 19th. So that's coming up in just a few days. And they're going to decide, apparently, whether or not the Jewish Agency in Russia has to cease and desist, to stop what they're doing. And if they do, that's going to signal to the Jewish community that they aren't allowed to leave. Now, they still can legally, but it becomes a little bit more difficult because the Jewish Agency has helped so many Jews with funding, and I read a story recently of them buying plane tickets to Israel for Jews that want to immigrate. So that's a big deal. Now, you might be wondering, why exactly would Russia want to close the Jewish Agency? Like, what exactly do they stand to gain from blocking Jews from leaving the country? Well, many Jews have left, and this always creates kind of a hole in culture and society. For example, Moscow's chief rabbi, he's been the chief rabbi since 1993, Rabbi Pinchas Goldschmidt, I may have the name, not pronouncing it right, but Rabbi Goldschmidt left Russia a short time after the invasion of Ukraine. And he's not the only one. It's estimated that, and this is a number that we got around mid-August, that 165,000 Jews, roughly 1 in 8 Russians, has left Russia. Now that's a big deal. That's a huge hole in the population. That's a huge hole in the culture. Sometimes they call that the brain drain because Jewish communities are very well educated, and it's a huge loss for countries that have a large Jewish population. And so they want to stem that flow. They want to slow that down. They want to close the Jewish Agency. So, suffice it to say, Eastern European Jews are a bit nervous because of this move and because of history. So as of yet, there hasn't been a concerted anti-Semitic effort against Russian Jews, but history tells us that when things go badly in that part of the world, then it's often the Jews that are the propaganda target. It's often the Jews that suffer pogroms and persecutions and expulsions, and it can be a dangerous thing to be a Jew in Eastern Europe when things aren't going well. So thousands of Jews are leaving. And if you remember, this relates, it's still in the corporate conscience, I guess you could call it, that during the Soviet Union era, the Soviet Union blocked thousands and thousands of Jews from leaving. They didn't want them to leave the Soviet Union. And so when the Soviet Union fell, there was a massive exodus, probably unprecedented in the history of the world, except maybe in the ancient world or something, but just thousands and thousands of Jews left the Soviet Union. Many of them immigrated to Israel, many immigrated to the United States, and other places. But all of that is in the public conscience of the Jewish community in Russia. Now, in Ukraine, things are a little different. At least they have been up till recently. So generally, things are more friendly in Ukraine to the Jewish population. For instance, Ukraine, I don't know if you know this or not, Ukraine is headed by a Jewish Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky. And he's not the first Jewish leader that Ukraine has had. So the country is generally more friendly to Jews. And it, up until late 1800s, had a massive Jewish population. Now, it's decreased over the last century due to a lot of historical things that have happened, but it has traditionally been the seat of a very large Jewish community. And so it's in the last, I'll say, since the fall of the Soviet Union, it's been friendly to Jews. I should clarify that. Before the fall of the Soviet Union was just a rough place to be for the Jews. But it's been better. It's been good, and that's the case. But nonetheless, thousands of Ukrainian Jews have left the country since the conflict began. I mean, just thousands and thousands from both Russia especially, but also Ukraine. And so that brings up the question, where are they going? Where are these Jews immigrating to? Some of them are moving kind of under a temporary status, but many are just flat out immigrating. They're leaving Russia, they're leaving Ukraine, and they're going various places. Now, one of the interesting places is Israel. It's estimated that over 20,000 Jews have immigrated to Israel since the beginning of this war between Russia and Ukraine. And now that's an increase. One website I saw said that's an increase of 600% more than the average in immigration. And so lots and lots of Jews are flowing into Israel. Now, many more are there on temporary status. And one of the things you have to understand and why this happens is that there's no other country for Jews that has an open door policy, so to speak. So pretty much anywhere else you go, you have to go through quite a bit of legal trouble to, get a bank account and get like temporary citizen status, whatever they call it in that country. Israel's different. If you have at least one Jewish grandparent, then you are offered Israeli citizenship. And so this is one of the reasons why immigration to Israel is so popular among Jews. In Hebrew, it's called the Aliyah, and thousands of Jews every year do it. But it is especially high this year. Now, it's not as high as it was at the fall of the Soviet Union. We're not to that point. I mean, so many moved at that point. But it is rising. The number has risen, and understandably so. I mean, they're fleeing from some pretty, possible potential for some pretty difficult situations. And in Ukraine, many were just fleeing because they were in danger. So now this makes me think of something I saw recently. I got an email from a guy that does Israeli tours, and I really love his ministry. It's a really cool thing. But in that email, he claimed that this move from Russia and Ukraine, this immigration move, is a fulfillment of Jeremiah 3:17 and 18. And so I thought it'd be worth taking a look at that, trying to get a sense of what those verses say, and asking the question, is this immigration that we're seeing right now really a fulfillment of Jeremiah 3 and some other verses? So note, here's the part that people are saying is the fulfillment of this prophecy. It says in Jeremiah 3:18, "And together they will come from a northern land to the land I gave your ancestors as an inheritance." Now, that does kind of sound like what's happening, right? I mean, Russia and Ukraine are to the north of Israel. Is it possible that what we're seeing is the fulfillment of this prophecy? Well, you gotta look at it in context. Notice what it says before that. "At that time they will call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord." Well, that hasn't happened yet. "And all nations will gather in Jerusalem to honor the name of the Lord." Well, that hasn't happened yet. "No longer will they follow the stubbornness of their evil hearts." Well, that hasn't happened yet. It says, "In those days, the people of Judah will join with the people of Israel, and together they will come from a northern land to the land I gave your ancestors as an inheritance." So, clearly, some people are saying, well, this is a prophecy fulfilled, right? Because people are coming from the land of the north, they're immigrating to Israel. But I just say, let's slow down. Now, I do believe that there are prophecies that have been fulfilled in our lifetimes that have to do with Israel, but this one is actually talking about a future era. This is talking about a future where Jesus has already returned at this point in prophecy. He set up his worldwide kingdom. Jerusalem is its capital, and people will flow there to worship the Lord. So that's what we're talking about in this verse. So I want to be careful about saying that this verse is fulfilled. Now, maybe we should do another video on a couple of prophecies, one that Jesus made in Luke 21 that I do think has been fulfilled in our lifetime having to do with Israel, but I don't think this one is. But here's what it does for us. It reminds us of the future that is to come. It reminds us that Christ will return. He will set up his kingdom. He will step foot on this earth, and his capital will be Jerusalem, and it will change the world history forever. Now, I'm looking forward to that day. I hope if you're a Christian that you are too. And so while I don't think that this immigration move is a fulfillment of Jeremiah 3, I do think it can remind us that there is a future world coming where Christ is king and he rules from Jerusalem. Now, I think that this immigration move and other things that we're seeing in Israel, I think they are a setup for possibly the return of Christ. And I say possibly, but I think it's a very strong probability that the things we're seeing in Israel are a precursor to Christ's return. And so I think it could happen at any time. And we need to continually focus on that, continually remember that Christ is going to return, and it could happen at any moment. So let's keep that on our mind and in our heart today, and I think it'll be a good day. Thanks for watching.